Legitimacy can help a lot in achieving success in a negotiation. There are several definitions for legitimacy, but here we'll focus on two aspects of the definitions. First, to be legitimate, it must follow the law and the rules in force. And second, there must be previous examples with some similarity with the current negotiation that can be used to justify a negotiation option or an interest being defended. In a very simple case, buying and selling apples, if all the sellers in a given street market charge similar prices, the buyer's legitimacy perception on the apple's price shall be stronger than in the case the prices are very different from one seller to another. But if this week's prices are much higher than in the previous week, this apparent legitimacy will be more difficult to get unless there is a valid justification for the price increase. Legitimate reasons, for example, could be problems in Apple's production or distribution due to bad weather. Even so, even if the price increase can be considered legitimate, nothing guarantees that the buyer will be willing to absorb the higher price, buying the same apples quantity as in the previous week. Legitimacy, in this example, could help protecting the seller's fairness reputation and, consequently, his relationship with loyal customers. Legitimacy could be a negotiation argument by the buying side as well. For example, the buyer could ask for a discount because he sells apple pies and he couldn't pass the difference to the pie's final price. Not knowing the profit margins of both, this argument presents some legitimacy. If the current negotiation is a repetition of a previous one with different negotiators, the analysis of the past negotiation helps in legitimating interests and options in the current negotiation. Even in the case of failure, lessons learned in the previous negotiation could and should be used in the current one. Different negotiations with the same negotiators should be used as well to legitimize the current negotiation. Coherence between these different negotiations is not necessarily a negotiation principle. After all, the negotiation situations can be completely the reverse and justify changes. But usually the coherence requirement is a very good starting point for discussing options. Not only interests, options, and objectives should be legitimate in a negotiation, but also the negotiators themselves. For example, for a negotiator being allowed to speak in the company's behalf, he must be formally appointed by the company within a given scope or negotiation conditions. A buyer in a company has a purchasing upper value X within his allowed to negotiate and an upper limit Y of purchasing items. And outside these limits, he must ask for his boss's approval or call for another negotiator. A person who negotiates on behalf of a country must be a diplomat or an official formally designated. Thus, these negotiators have legitimacy to negotiate in the name of his company or country. In this context, legitimacy is not the same thing as legality, but one understands that legality is a requirement for legitimacy. Not everything that is legal is necessarily legitimate. In other words, everything that is legitimate is legal, but not everything that is legal is also legitimate. The negotiators must be legitimate. The negotiation process must be fair and legitimate. and the negotiation results must be legitimate. The negotiation objectives and options, as well as the interests, should be legitimate in order to make the negotiations more simple and fair, but necessarily they are only legal. If options and interests in a negotiation were always based on previous ones, there would be no space for innovations. So we'll continue to talk about this in the next video.